This is a special meeting of the governing body of the Borough of Bloomingdale, October 30th, 2017. I'd ask at this time if everyone would please rise and salute our nation's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please. Here.
Councilmembers Hudson.
Present.
Costa.
Here.
Tomato.
Here.
Delazier.
Here.
Sandemeyer.
Here.
Yazdi.
Also with us, a municipal clerk, Gay McCarthy, and a borough engineer, Nick Agnoli. This is an official meeting of the governing body of the Borough of Bloomingdale. On October 18th, and again on October 24th, public notification, date, time, place of this meeting was faxed and mailed to all local news media and posted here at Borough Hall. Should I do really public comment? Or do we have the other end? But we have one on those. Okay. What we do, the original intention of this meeting, the sole intention of this meeting was to invite everyone here who lives in the flood area we're studying now and bring you up to speed on the preliminary findings to date by Mr. Agnoli, and then what we're going to ultimately submit to FEMA and hopefully get it approved. But while we were having this meeting, based on the rest of our calendar year schedule, we do have one item that we're going to do before we go to the flood meeting portion. And this is an introduction of an ordinance. What we do tonight is introduced by title, and then we have a public hearing later on. This is simply refinancing some debt. The borough has a $1.5 million of permanent debt that has a call feature, so we're going to refinance that to save from 4% to 2%, net savings of $48,000 over 5 years, and that debt will be paid in 5 years. So tonight, before we go to the flood, we're going to do that bond. Now there's a public hearing, so there's time to speak to that, but being that that is on the agenda, I am going to ask for early public comment, Jane, if anybody just has anything to say. So I need a motion for early public comment.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Again, this is not for the flood, because we'll have plenty of time to speak to that. Does anyone have any other agenda item to speak to, which would be the refunding bond ordinance? Seeing no one, motion to close.
Second.
And now I need a motion to introduce ordinance 21, 2017, refunding bond ordinance authorizing issuance not to exceed $1.615,000 in general obligation refunding bonds. Who makes that motion?
Second.
Any discussion? Again, this is not new debt. This is refinancing existing debt, saving the borough 2 points on interest, about, again, $48,000 over 5 years. Any other comment? Can I have a roll call, please? And we'll have second and final reading November, do we have time? November 21st? November 21st.
Councilmembers Costa.
Yes.
Tomato.
Yes.
Delazier.
Yes.
Hudson.
Yes.
Sandemeyer.
Yes.
Yazdi.
Yes.
Great. Okay, now the topic, while we're all here, is discussion regards to homes which are currently in the flood zone per FEMA mapping and options and the borough's investment on appealing these maps. We, as you all know, gosh, it's 2 years already? 2 years ago, we studied the Oakwood Lake section of town based on information received from a resident. And after doing a quick glance with Mr. Agnoli here, we thought there was some erroneous mapping going on. You have to remember a lot of these maps are very old. The technology that was in place today was not in place then. But FEMA had no intention of fixing anything. They're just like, we're not remapping that part of the floodplain. So the borough took the initiative on the Oakwood section, invested about $30,000, and we did the remapping and successfully moved 138 some odd homes from the floodplain. At the time we had Nick in town, I just thought there was errors elsewhere. And so Nick did a cursory view of the whole town and felt that from Reeve and Knowles down to possibly Van Dam, there was some more errors. So this is why we're here tonight. Now tonight, I'm going to hand out the presentation that Nick's going to go through. We'll let Nick go through that. We will post the maps. Now this is preliminary. These maps are public in the sense that we're sharing with you tonight. But they are not public in the sense where FEMA can see these until Nick has all his data submitted to FEMA. So you will be able to leave with these teeny tiny PowerPoint presentations of the maps, but you'll be able to leave tonight knowing whether our preliminary maps show you're in or you're out. And then there's also, you need to understand that sometimes the map may look like you're in, but Nick will explain the terminology of ways you could still appeal that, and Nick will help us get through that for those who are not clearly cut out. Good news is no one's been at it. So the mapping that we've done did not put anyone who wasn't in. And I believe we're approximately 46 homes. That's what we're looking at as far as coming out. So I will turn the floor over to Nick Agnoli, who is a genius when it comes to hydrology studies and flooding. That's why he's our guy. He's kind of a character too, so that's on Nick. Again, I thank you all for coming tonight to learn where we are. Why don't you put those up, and I'll pass these out. These are just a PowerPoint that Nick will be going over. And then we'll have any questions.
Not watching, thanks for the time, so sorry. Oh, watch.
Lock John instead. There you go. No thanks. Just call me Vanna? No.
It's an honor to be a flag.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure, yes.
Can I make a suggestion? Why don't you just come right here?
Let's think about it. That's all used for my client and child.
I don't know if it's all the same. It's just there and there.
No, it's the same.
Like now it changed.
Nick, these are all the same, right?
Yep, and this is going to be when I go to like the local level of mapping. This is an engineer's dream. I have multiple computers, multiple screens. Okay, again, my name is Nick Agnoli. I know a lot of... What's it? Oh, thank you. My name is Nick Agnoli. I met a lot of you back in February when we talked about the maps with regard to Van Dam, the tributary to Van Dam. You probably saw surveyors out there the past couple of months. You probably saw engineers out there the past couple of months trying through culverts, peering in your window, that sort of thing. That was not related to this study, but the survey certainly was. We set out initially, as stated by the mayor, to do similar to what we've done in Oakwood Lake Brook. Those of you at the Oakwood Lake meetings 2 years ago, we went and requested that the FEMA library send us the original modeling. And we got the original modeling, a lot of which was done. You have to understand, when you get a new FEMA map, it'll say 2007, preliminary 2015. But the modeling behind it, the majority of the modeling behind it, is from 1982, 1983, and the tributaries to the Quantic have not been updated. While the maps say updated, they are not. It's just new backdrops, aerials, and that sort of thing. So these streams, most of them have not been restudied since the early 80s. And, back then we dressed a lot differently, but also the models were much more primitive, and we didn't have the great topographic data, landform data that we have now. And with the new modeling that we employed at MLA Engineering and a lot of other firms, coupled with the great aerial topographic maps that we have available from Army Corps, a lot of them were done in 2007 and 2009. Early review showed the mapping was very inaccurate, especially near the ball field. So as I begin, I just want to thank the Mayor and Council for the opportunity to talk tonight and to go over where we are now in terms of preliminary findings. So just to talk about, where are we? We've already reviewed the original FEMA model. We found that there were inconsistencies and seemingly inaccuracies. All the road names wrong was part of it, but more importantly, the modeling itself did not seem correct. We looked at the hydrology. That means we looked at what FEMA said, how much water during rainfall events will be getting to the stream. It seemed accurate. In fact, in some locations it seemed kind of low, so we walked away from that. We said, good enough. We're not going to adjust that any further. Perform field inspections. Again, we went out there and actually did survey about every 200 feet along all the streams. We shot all the culverts, all the pipes, etc. So we have a much more accurate understanding of what's going on in the field. And then engineers from my office actually walked the streams. Got to be a lot of dogs. But we walked the streams and got a better understanding of what was actually happening in the field. Coupled with that February meeting where a lot of you stepped forward and said, look, I've lived in my house since 1954. I've never flooded. And why that data is so helpful, especially when we're dealing with FEMA, and why we use that data so thoroughly, is because we've all lived through Floyd, we all lived through the 84 storm, right? The April 84 storm, and we were here during Irene. And Irene, to most of us, was the flood record. and rivers in North Jersey. And Irene was, in most cases, between the 90 and 100-year event. So for me, when I have someone step forward and say, look, my property didn't even get wet in 1950, since I've been here, since 54, I think to myself, well, you're here during Irene, you should at least see water near your property. So again, I thank you all. Almost 40 of you took the time in submitting to our office, both at the meeting and afterwards. About 40 of you took the time to submit to us data. Trust me, we use all of it. I'm going to show you in a second what that looks like. That was very interesting. We then went ahead and we developed the draft model. That's complete. We mapped the draft findings. That's what you see in front of you. I'm going to talk about that in detail, I promise. Finalize the model, present to Bloomingdale. That's tonight. Then we'll submit this for peer review, and then we'll send it off to FEMA. So in terms of where we are schedule-wise, after tonight, when we get feedback from you this week, we're going to open up to feedback till Friday. Again, anyone looks at something and says, I've experienced flooding, that's just not accurate, that's not physically possible, please let us know. We'll absolutely re-examine it. And then next week, we'll send it out for peer review. What that means is we have a third-party independent reviewer that was formerly a FEMA employee, go through our modeling, make sure it meets muster, something the team would accept. Did it last time, helped out a lot. It flew through last time. And then we'll send it down to FEMA. So along the steps, we're at the bottom now, which is nice. So after tonight's meeting, again, solicit feedback, and then get it out for peer review. Okay. Quick reminder on LOMR, letter of map revision. That's what this is. The reason is there's two items. There's two acronyms tonight, and that's it, I promise. There's a LOMA, letter of map amendment. That's individual homes. That's an important one that we're going to talk about a little bit more detail. And then there's an LOMR, letter of map revision. That's a regional map change. That's what I'm doing for you guys. So, LOMR, this is all from last time, so I'll go through it briefly. It's about 90 days of the process. There's also a 90-day appeal period. What that means is we'll send it down to FEMA. They have 90 days to give us feedback. Lately, I'll say lately, it's been a little bit faster. So that's our hope. Then we'll get comment back from the Maryland office a little faster. And then once they say good enough, there's a 90-day appeal period. So the people that I highlight tonight, the homes I highlight tonight, are the ones that tentatively, in a draft form, would no longer require flood insurance under the National Flood Insurance Program. So we'll go over all these highlighted yellow structures here. These are ones that our preliminary mapping is showing is no longer, was in the flood zone and no longer is. Two things to talk about, and I'm going to mess them up myself tonight. There is your property is in, and then there's your structure is in. So your map contacts, when your bank contacts you and says, we think you need flood insurance, step one is you say, wait a second, is that because my property is in or because my house is in? And on the next slide, I'll show you, they're not the same thing. So when I talk about homes that are coming out, I mean the structure. The flood zone may still clip the edge of your property, and your bank still may say, oh, we need more information because we show your property is in. Banks do not require insurance on properties, they require insurance on structures. Okay, so just something to bear in mind. I unintentionally use them interchangeably, but when I say the yellow structures are out, I mean the buildings themselves. It still may clip your property, but that doesn't matter. Because for flood insurance purposes, it only matters if your house is outside this highlighted area. Okay? Okay. And I always say, oh, it's very smooth at that point. As we learned from Oakwood Lake Brook, it is not smooth. Again, a lot of companies will come back and say, we need more information. Reach out to me. Okay, I'll explain to you the process. So if the bank comes back after we've revised these maps and you're 500 feet from the flood zone, but you're still getting harassed by either your insurance company and or your bank, please reach out to us because we'll just explain the paperwork process that will get you out, okay? Because you're absolutely entitled to not pay flood insurance. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of paperwork. Other times you've got a real good insurance company. They understand the maps and they say, okay, we get it. Letter of map revision was approved. Effective date December 1. After that date, you don't require flood insurance. We get it. Okay, let's talk about our findings. First and foremost, we looked at, and this is the profile view. This is as you crawl down Van Dam Brook. And so as you're coming down Van Dam Brook here, okay? So again, Van Dam Brook. We looked at what's the elevation compared to what the FEMA finding was back in the early 80s. And the finding was that the base flood elevation that they had was pretty accurate, meaning the depth of water wasn't that far off. So I'll go through these kind of quickly. The red line you see is, again, the water coming down off the hill, and it's pretty much resting on top of the lines that they have. Again, same view here. We differ a little bit, but you'll see here again, our red line, which is our water line, is about the same as their water line for the 100-year. So the first part of the process was the hydrology. Again, how much rainfall water gets into your streams. And our finding was it looked pretty accurate. The next item was, okay, once the water gets in, about how deep is it? I said, okay, that also looks fairly accurate. It looks like the depth of water is about right. Where we diverged a lot for our friends at FEMA is when we actually looked at how many structures should be in, meaning the extent of the flood zone. New structures in the flood zone, we found none. Water came very close to a few buildings, but did not enter them. So again, new structures in the flood zone, 0. Removed or out as seen, 43. And the reason I say out as seen is this. If when the new maps are published, you go, wow, I can look at this myself and say there's no way I'm in the flood zone. That's good enough to file a letter of map amendment. If you're OAS or out as seen, you can file, you as a homeowner can file that. You don't need an engineer. You can just, and you have to supply your deed. And I'll go through this with you. But you have to supply your deed. You have to supply the new map, okay? And then you have to supply a location map. And that's it. And that's sufficient for an out-of-scene removal. So again, for everyone in this room, when these maps are published, you look at it, you go, my building doesn't touch Nick Agnoli's crazy spaghetti line. Well, that means you can file an out-of-scene, and you're out. Now, the approximate annual insurance savings to this community, based on the average cost everyone's paying right now, is about $88,000 a year. And the saving per household over the life of a 30-year mortgage in today's dollars is about $61,000. So we looked at all the insurance policies that would be affected. Over the life of a mortgage, it's about $61,000 per household that would be saved of the 43 that we believe are out as seen. You just want to see the maps. Okay, so next. Okay, lots of pasta on this one. Red. Red is everyone who contacted us and said, look, I've been living here for at least 10 years, and I have not flooded. So what was interesting is, when you get over to like the ball field area, let me just use the mouse. When you go over to this area here, there's a couple lines, and it's a little confusing, but the blue is the FEMA. Everything you see that's blue up here, everything you see that's blue up here is the original, or these are the original flood maps. The yellow line outlines what we believe is the flood zone. So to give you an example, this area right here, the blue line covers these homes, okay? Our yellow line bounds what we believe the flood zone is. So as you see, and this is what was alleged in my discussions with the mayor a while ago, it was way too wide up on Knowles. It was way too wide down at Oak. It didn't belong in Whitehaven Place or Park Avenue or part of Van Dam Avenue, you know. And our detailed mapping and our detailed analysis is finding the same. So again, as we come down Van Dam, you'll see again it narrows significantly. Over by Oak Street, very narrow. At Union Avenue, it balloons out a little bit. However, it does not hit structures. So when it hits Union Avenue and the water spreads out a little bit, it just floods the roadway. That was an important modeling distinction that took us a lot of time to get that right. Then once it gets to the baseball field, as been alleged, and a lot of you told us this last time back in February, it just floods the baseball field, but really doesn't affect the homes. Our modeling showed exactly what you said. The water hit the baseball field, spread out, but this entire area here was spared. So all these homes that were shown in blue, well now our yellow line's a confine, so water just stays right here. So you see water comes down, there's the water, goes across baseball fields, ignores Whitehaven Place, ignores Park Avenue, ignores parts of Van Dam, comes across here, then joins up with Van Dam tributary right here, and then enters the Pequannock River here. So on the next map, what we show is the result of that. The yellow homes, the homes outlined in yellow, or filled in yellow, are the homes that we find are no longer to be in the flood zone. These are homes that, based on the preliminary maps, will no longer be impacted by the 100-year floodplain. So again, we pull one out over by Knoll, but as we come down, you'll see a lot of these that were at the edge of the old zone are nowhere near the new flood zone. I mean, these are about 100 feet away. That's a pretty good distance. And then when you get down below, these are close, but we're gonna definitely fight for you guys. So for you down at Union and Oak Street, we'll definitely go to war on that because we believe you're out. And then over here, this is the one that we just thought was completely mismapped. And that was the finding back a year ago when we did the preliminary. we couldn't, even with the original data, we still thought it was wrong. So with the refined data, we're finding the same. This area here is erroneously placed in the flood zone. And even on the tributary, the small tributary here, again, these little fringe properties, the ones at the edge, on like Walnut, for instance, we also believe those are out. And this person here, they just knew how to buy. I don't know who that is. If they're in the room, nice job, because we checked that about 10 times. But you're the L inside the bullet hole. That was pretty good. And there's another home here. It touches. So the other thing I might add is that doesn't mean in any way that if it just taps your house that too bad, there's nothing we can do for you. You can still file a letter of map amendment with an elevation certificate. Okay. So that's the important comment as well. You've got out of scene OAS, and that means I can look at this. I don't touch the Agnoli line. We're fine. The other one is, okay, Agnoli thinks he knows something, but I don't agree. Let's do an elevation certificate. So what the elevation certificate might find is locally your property is just high enough that you're out of the flood zone. So don't be concerned if you are not one of these yellow properties. It doesn't mean the battle is over for you. It just means you have to go to the next level and get an elevation certificate. I know you have some local surveyors who are very accommodating on price last time with Oakwood Lake Brook, and we're willing to do that at a very reasonable rate. An elevation certificate is usually between $400 and $700. It varies significantly. The reason it varies so much is often neighbors will do it together, and that brings down the price a lot. Because it's all elevation certificate is, and I'm repeating myself from last time, and I apologize, but it is good information. An elevation certificate is a professional land surveyor licensed in New Jersey will come out to your property and survey the lowest adjacent grade to your home, the basement, the first finished floor, a couple spots around the house, and what they'll show is water can't get to the home. You know, you might be Camelot, you might be up on the hill, and for that reason, with a base flood elevation, making up numbers, let's say the base flood elevation, the 100-year elevation is elevation 200, and your home's at 201, you're out. The elevation certificate proves that you're not in the flood zone. Versus out at scene where, again, I can look at, and it's a great example, I can look at the properties here and say there's just no way that these are going to get wet. You know, when you go to file a letter of map amendment online, simple process. They'll just say, I'm removing my structure, I'm a homeowner, I've got my deed, and if you don't have a copy of your deed, Passaic County actually has them all online, which is pretty nice. You got the deed stamp on it, saying that the clerk received it. So, again, any of that stuff, feel free to email me. I can direct you to the right spot. And what to do next? I submitted all this to the mayor. The mayor wants to make it accessible online. At your discretion, or if people have comments, please give me feedback by Friday. I'm going to have the maps here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to show you now the maps in more detail over on this screen. I'm going to zoom in and with Google Earth and show you exactly where the flood zone is. So again, any comments, concerns, whatnot, email me, call me. I'll leave these maps here with the mayor. And now, if I can bring you over here for a second, I'm going to show you these in a little bit more detail.
Before you do,
Yeah, please.
the homes that are clearly out.
Yes.
FEMA approves these and they're clearly not touching your line.
Yep.
Why does the homeowner have to do anything?
Okay. The short answer is they shouldn't have to do anything. The letter of map amendment speeds the process. Because what was happening with Oakwood Lake Brook, and I know people are upset, like, look, I owe flood insurance. I checked for flood insurance next month. I called my insurance company, and they said we need a letter from FEMA. The posted map isn't good enough. We want a letter from FEMA. Well, letter of map amendment is pretty much bulletproof, and that's where people went. They just went online, and it takes between 15 to 30 days to get one. That doesn't mean if you sent the check, you're out of luck. The effective date is still the effective date. If you do not owe in flood insurance, you're owed a refund. That means that the effective date of these maps, for instance, FEMA, let's say FEMA agrees, February 1st, 2018, FEMA says, agreed. The letter of map revision is posted online. This is a new effective date. These maps are superseded. Here are the new maps. And you pay your flood insurance 3 weeks later. You're owed a refund. You were not required to do flood insurance after that time. Okay? Let's say you did flood insurance 2 months prior. You're also owed a partial refund because you're paying into a year-long insurance deal. You don't need it. You need it 2 months. So Mayor, that's the short answer is you should not need one. It will speed the process and prevent you from having to write that check.
Mortgage company can easily go to FEMA's new maps.
Anybody can do what I'm doing. Sad, but true.
Revision does not have to.
What I do is very simple.
The other
No.
question before you go on is, you mentioned the letter of map amendment, some of the property still touches it,
Yep.
you know, fight that fight, an elevation certificate. People could do that today, right? They
Yes.
don't need to be waiting for this process.
No. If an individual was absolutely certain, based on their history of the property, that there's just no way, or if they've had survey done, let's say you did an addition, you had survey information, and I'll, email me, I'll give you the new base flood elevation. I have it every like 20 feet along the river. If you're like, hey, look, I had an addition put on, I know my elevation, I'll get a certificate if I need one, but just tell me what the new elevation is for my property, and I tell you, all right, it's 200. You go, oh, great, I just put a deck on, I know my basement's at 206. Okay, go get an elevation certificate. Go get one, you might win tomorrow. However, those are, again, because we've crunched the floodplain so much, we should be catching most of it. I mean, we've shrunk this down considerably. So I never take away that option. Elevation certificate's a great idea. It's good to have one anyway. The other thing I should point out is if you have flood insurance, and let's say you don't get out of the zone, you go, Nick's not as good as he thinks he is, I'm still stuck in the zone, now you know where I live, go on my website, it's on there, at least my office. What you can do is I still recommend an elevation certificate because what FEMA assumes when they do your policy is that you're high hazard, you're the worst case, because they don't have better data than that. But if you show that, hey, look, the water floods me, but it only puts 2 inches of water in my basement, that's a much different policy than I have 8 feet of flooding in my house. So elevation certificates for people who stay in are never a waste of money. They're never, because at worst, all they'll do is confirm that FEMA's right, you're the worst case. That's the worst that could happen to you. The best thing that can happen to you is it takes you out of the zone. And then the middle ground is it can show that you're paying too much insurance, that you're not a high risk, that you should be paying $1,000 instead of the new $2,500 norm. Okay? So you bear that in mind. An elevation certificate is rarely a waste of money, unless it's so obvious and you've got 16 feet of flooding, which is what they used to think in Oakwood Lake Brook, the old maps. They're terrible. But I'm glad you brought that up. So yeah, if at the end of tonight anybody has questions about any of that, Wilmer, elevation certificate, please feel free to ask me. Makes me feel important.
And it was BNC in Butler, who was the town surveyor,
Yes.
who gave $300 elevation
That was incredible.
pricing for the Oakwood within the same year. As Nick goes over to do his more detailed map, I want to point out that the borough, last year, with a lot of work, finally became certified as a community reading system community.
Yep.
Which means our first round was what, 10%?
You have a 10% discount on all flood policies.
If you have flood insurance, you should be receiving a 10% reduction automatically because of what the borough did. Does that happen automatically?
Yes.
So when their carrier renews them,
Yes.
they should know that with our community rating system.
When you get your receipt from your bank, from your mortgage company, it says it on there. It'll say minus 10%
Look at the
CRS.
declaration pages on your flood policy. It's been renewed since last year, right?
Yep.
I don't remember the effective date.
No, it was last year, right? And I'd say about once a year I'll get a resident that it didn't happen automatically, and we have the paperwork. We can file it with your insurance company on the reducing insurance.
So that was 10%, and then we recently upgraded to.
We're hoping to 15 to 20%. Yeah.
We applied with
Yeah.
the initial steps.
That takes a while to get it's called a modification. We felt I'm going to defend Bloomingdale. Your first year, this happens all the time. They just get you into the system, and they give you a decent score. But based on all the things that Bloomingdale is doing, including stuff like this is all creditable under the community rating system. So yeah, I should say that's the other great safety net. If none of this goes right for you, there's also a larger flood insurance discount coming your way as well. So you already have one, which is fantastic, but the modification has been filed. Yeah. So hope it's good.
Spring of next year.
Spring of next year.
Just keep an eye on that. You're not getting it.
And they consider that very fast. It's very quick.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
You-
Yeah, sure.
No other questions, or people can come up and look closer to that.
Yep. I'm doing this just because I kind of want to show you what was happening with the model, because it'll say a lot of things, but we spent a lot of time comparing it to, comparing the model to what your stories were, and also what we saw in the field. So we got up here, my bearings, almost all of it again. So as it comes down, through here, you see there's, and this was what you guys were mentioning before, there's a nice grade break here. So that these backyards are really, really low. So when we look at the line, it's not hitting any of these houses here. So So again, we'll have, this is that whole idea of out is seen. Okay? Again, we'll take it and follow through these woods. So all of you who said, hey, look, I don't even see the water, we found that what you're saying is fully accurate by mom. Not that you're lying. It's great that you think that. I was going to be able to prove it. And so my burden of proof was I didn't take all your stories and turn them into these lines. Minor flooding here. I crossed over Oak Street, which is interesting because FEMA has about 9 of your roads labeled Oak Street. The mapping is very hard to follow because there's Oak Street and Oak Street and Oak Street, and we realized it was all wrong. It was just labeled all wrong. Right here, we found no impacts. It's going in between the homes. Well, there's a little constructed channel. Very, very small culvert here. Goes around these structures here. Does not touch them. Goes around this structure here. This is up on a bit of soil. Goes over to the baseball field. And again, what was described to you before is exactly what we found. Stays in the backyard for the most part. Stays in the baseball field. Floods that. I think everyone here was saying is between the half a foot to a foot of water for a major ravine. That's what our modeling showed as well. Crosses over into the wooded area here. Spreads out in the street. Now this is where there's a very, very small, it's a tiny culvert here. It's clogged. So that doesn't do anything. The water gets to here, it spreads out. Again, I'll show the side tributary. Water also comes down out of these woods. Again, great design. Whoever did this, it's a nice circle around that. Same here. Well, we will work very closely with this line to see if we can't get the entire structure out. Same here. We'll try to see if we can't move that. There are going to be minor refinements. Again, we'll see if we can bend this line down a little bit. So we're looking to make the maximum number of out as seen as possible. And this is where you see kind of the problem as to why there's flooding. This brook is tiny. In some places it disappears. It's a couple feet across. We were walking through it, and we get down in here, you can't even tell where you are. This is where it just got ripped up by sticker bushes, and I called it today. Maybe, healed up 2 days later and came back. We got shredded pretty well. And engineers we didn't become engineers because we're tough. And then, again, following this system here, this is where it fans out. You see, well, why is this area flooding so large? It's because this is where the two combine. This is where you have the main Van Dam and then the tributary of the Van Dam combined. So we do have flooding here. This is the area, like I keep saying, the area was eliminated. This is it right here. So this is your Whitehaven Place, your Park Avenue. What's that? Okay, we'll go to the mountains in a second.
Your mom needs credit.
I see this person getting in.
I'm the one with the school bus.
This is after we got injured, we could have jumped into a few pools. I didn't realize that. Again, we continue on. Now it goes to the backyards. Now it switches to the backyards. And from this point, it goes straight to the line with no additional impacts. So again, looking at these structures, you have a lot of this going on. You have a lot of structures when they came in, they placed fill, and they lifted. These are areas where, if you see yourself in one of these donuts, if you see yourself in one of these donuts, realize that you're probably, if you still remain in, you can't get out of the scene, you're a great candidate for an elevation certificate. Because I tell you right now, the models that we're using now are extremely accurate. They're picking up little bits of fill that you add into your property to build these homes. They pick up landscaping. The model that we're using now are picking up landscaping. We're picking up catch basins with the quality of the model now. So, 1, 2, you have 2 donuts here. You have a third donut down here with multiple homes in it. You have 2. These are areas where, for our conversation again, it's great that we did our best to model you out, but even if we don't get it with the modeling you out, go back for an elevation certificate. Because what I noted too is not all of you have basements, a lot of you have crawl spaces. Crawl spaces aren't counted. Basements are, crawl spaces are not. So that's another thing. That actually, if you're just a crawl space and you're like, flood, I got to put a flooding, you don't. It's the first finished one they're going to count. If people with basements realize they use a basement elevation. Even if it's unfinished, even if you've taken all your utilities out, any basement structure is still considered habitable and it's counted against you. So when you do your elevation certificate, bear in mind the first elevation is your basement. Okay? So before you run out for an elevation certificate, consider whether or not you have a crawl space or So again, for structures like this, these are, again, prime candidates there. One other thing I want to show you real quick. This is just to see if you'll keep it one. Everyone along this corridor here, okay? And we had a whole bunch of names for it. But everyone along this, the Reeve Avenue or Knoll Road corridor, realize we were going to refine this to the extent that we can. Our belief is all these structures are out. That's our belief. And again, we'll refine the mapping a bit before submission. So this is the kind of feedback we need. For those of you here tonight who are from those properties, if you have never flooded, please reaffirm to me where you, as far as you think it has flooded. And we'll go back and take a look at that model one more time. This area, based on the feedback we had while we're in the field, believe it or not, we're out in the field, people started wandering out of their homes, and we thought they wanted to hurt us. But they came out to kind of tell us as to where they had flooded and helped us refine this section. That's why this is so narrow. It's based on what we discussed with others, and based on us taking additional data in the field, we were able to crush this down and make it smaller. So I expect nothing different up here as well. And with that, that's all I had.
Obviously, everyone here is concerned in my end or in my house. So who was able to tell by looking at this building?
In Chestnut, where the school bus was. I'm like in the middle. Right.
No, dude, I can stay here all night. As long as somebody buys me dinner, we're good.
Buy your dinner. All right, why don't we do
No, my wife will get mad, okay?
Chestnut? Yeah, you're almost there.
You're right
Oh,
there.
yes, that's there.
So I'm the first house in the yellow, out of the yellow, to the right one.
This house right here?
No, the next one, that's still in, that's me, yeah.
That's
And I'm
what.
across the street. You see the yellow school bus? You're right over the top of the roof of the school
All right,
bus.
so wait,
Right here?
this one stays in the zone.
Yeah, this is out.
What's out?
This one right here.
Chestnut, the school bus one.
No, that's not you, that's Joe.
This is out.
Right here.
Two to the right, she's two to the right.
This?
No.
Come on.
Come up and show.
What do you give them?
I've never looked at this.
You don't
I've
have to.
done like 9 tries. I haven't got the right house yet. It's my house.
This is,
That's out.
you're out.
I'm out.
According to preliminary maps, we have you out. Yeah, you were way too far in.
No, that's the one.
Still in my elevation.
So this one,
You were the one. Thank you very much for using that model.
Nick, but this
Yes,
one,
that's it.
no chance of elevation.
Oh, no, elevation certificate, absolutely. Anybody who's that close to the edge line, file an elevation certificate. You're real close. All these guys are really close.
After, after approval.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely not approved, yes.
Right now. Okay, where are you? Nick, Chestnut before that,
That's it.
This is where the two rivers come together. This is one section. Every single person never went from much.
The last time we had another meeting,
Okay.
and when
Yeah,
it
it's
was
Yeah, right now you're showing elevation that you're wiring it out. Right now the electric's off.
the house next to you, I guess. That's Mark's.
Yes.
So close.
Yeah, when they're that close, we're talking 10 feet, we'll go back and look at the model.
What I'm saying is,
This is extremely shallow right here. This is really, really shallow. Like what you're saying is, never manage your house. Okay, so you understand.
You don't flood, do you? You went from dessert to the mall? Is Cole playing basketball?
I just said they both of them found out they're all in school.
Good. He looked pretty good when I was watching him just shoot around. He got big. He looked pretty good. His movements look a lot better than the Irish. He must have been practicing.
Actually, they just won, his baseball team just won the ball championship.
Oh, nice. Lombardi's still a coach, huh? Yeah, I heard Don.
Said you hoped for if you wanted to do it.
She was a good coach.
What do you think? Come on around and sit in the backyard and do it.
They put up with Eddie Bograd for the boys. Actually, Justin had her too. That's how long she coached.
So moved. Second.
Aye.
Thanks.
Sorry, guys.